Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third Food Summit. I'm Bella Wood. I'm the Executive Director of the Institute for Ecology, Scholarship, and Health, and we're so glad you're here. It's really special to see everyone here again, new faces and familiar ones from the last 2 years. But we're going to start focusing on a new direction for the Food Summit. In year one, we began laying the foundation. We identified values and began to shape what the collective vision would look like. And last year, we celebrated this region's talent in agriculture, cultural knowledge, and leadership. We brought together producers, educators, funders, government, and advocates in a shared space. Now, this year, we're moving vision into action. This summit is about putting ideas into motion, strengthening partnerships, mobilizing resources, and launching real efforts to address the challenges. This is no longer just a gathering, it's going to be a launch pad. So throughout the day, you're going to hear from students, which is always our most prized panel, about what redefining agricultural leadership really looks like. You're going to meet people who are ready to invest in this community. You're going to learn about successful models that exist across the region and how they can be scaled and implemented here. The future of the Rio Grande Valley food system isn't just something we're planning for, it's something that is actively being built together here. So, we wouldn't be here without a lot of supporters, and thank you all. First, I would like to give a big thank you to the Growing Justice Fund, who helped with the funds for this event, the Regional Food Business Centers, Verdant Exchange, Sentley Center for Regenerative Agriculture, and the Region 1 Education Service Center. To our partners at Region 1, Lori, Robert, Idania, Amaris, and so many more, thank you. We could not have done this without you. We are very, very grateful. We also need to thank UTRGV's Center for Sustainable Ag and Rural Development, led by Aisha and everything she does. She's been around since year one, and we're really grateful. Not sure where she is right now, but I want to thank the Equitable Food System Working Group. The members of that group have helped shape this vision from the beginning and will continue to push this action forward. Veronica Dimas, the curator of our beautiful event tonight, as well as just a mover and shaker in all things. And then my incredible team. Perla Schrock, our operations manager, Hernan Comenero, the founder of the Institute for Ecology, Scholarship, and Health. And there's a very special thanks to Robert Maggiani and Luz Ballesteros, who, while they couldn't be here today, their commitment and guidance is deeply felt. So last year, Dr. Alexis Rossellis closed the summit by reminding us of the bucket brigade. Each of us passing a bucket shoulder to shoulder because the fire is very real and the only way to put it out is together. So that's the kind of collective action we're here to do today. It is my honor to welcome Dr. Luis Ribera, professor and extension economist at the Department of Agriculture Economics at Texas A&M University. Dr. Ribera brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise in international trade, economic impact analysis, and agricultural policy. As director of the Center for North American Studies and program director for the international projects with the Agriculture and Food Policy Center, he leads nationally significant work that helps decision makers respond to emerging global trends with clarity and precision. With over 400 speaking engagements, make this 401, and $147 million in research and extension funding under his leadership, we are incredibly honored to have him with us here today.
It's a pleasure to be here. I started my career here in the Valley, 2005, and great times. I learned a lot, worked with a lot of people. I really enjoyed it. Then I moved to College Station back in 2014, and I've been there ever since, but I always consider this my second home. And what I want to present today is, it's really hard to put it into words. You know, being an economist, we express our feelings with numbers, you know, and this is a weird way, I guess, of express. You know, this is sort of like a love story that I have between economics and agriculture. You know, make the case why it's so important and why the future for agriculture is so important. And it's not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. It's always depending on what consumers want. Okay, always put that into consideration. It's what the consumers want and not what we think they want. Okay, so I don't think we have well, I'm going to have some time, I guess, on the Q&A at the end. But I'm going to go through some of the slides and just going to tell you why I think this is so important and how it all started. I'm going to try to talk about the importance of trade and food production, South Texas ag production, how important it is, what are the main things that we produce here, and what the potential there. And then one study that we did a long time ago with folks from Project Hope, with Diana Padilla, there was a great partner at the time, to show a little bit about what's the expected return that you can have for a small acreage production and trying to sell it at local restaurants and having CSAs and things like that. Okay? So, but let me start very broad and start bring things back in. One thing that I like to show up or to show is that when you look at the world GDP, the amount of money that we had in the world, for many, many years, the amount of money in the world gets stuck, okay? And then something happened in 1820. That was the Industrial Revolution, that we were able to be very productive, that we were able to use capital that was gained here, and then all of a sudden, the world's wealth shoot up. Okay? Now, why do I start with that is, if we can learn what good things that we did in the past and try to replicate in the future, that is very important. Okay? So, this is real data that shows after the Industrial Revolution, we're going to shoot up. And then, the different countries develop differently. And the U.S. led the way. When you look in terms of GDP per capita, here's the U.S., and here are other developed countries, and here developing countries. I'm originally from here, from Bolivia. So this is very important to me because I wanted to see what is it that the U.S. did and other developed countries did to help my country and other developing countries. Okay? So with this increasing wealth, it comes, wealth accumulation, right? You heard the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, right? Well, when you actually look at the data, yes, the rich got richer, but also the poor got better off. This one shows how the number of billionaires in the world has increased. This is World Bank data, by the way. As the billionaires got more and more in the world, the poverty rate went down. Okay? So it's not rich versus poor. It's more entrepreneurs and how we all benefit from those entrepreneurs. And each of us can be an entrepreneur if you find, again, what is that people want. But in order to get that, you need to start with capital, right? You need to start with some money. And I'm going to talk a little bit why some of the programs that you can see on the booth out there are so important, because some of those programs can help you start with that capital. Remember, in the world, it took a long time to accumulate capital so you can have this economic growth and create wealth. These programs can help with that. Now, looking at the future, this one shows the result of that increase in wealth. I know it's a little bit hard to read, but it's just a snapshot of things that changed with all this wealth. We have extreme poverty going down. That's in the 2 centuries, from about 95% of the people being in extreme poverty, now about only 10 of them are in the world. Democracy starting going up. That's the green one here. Basic education up, vaccination rate up, literacy up, child mortality down. So again, we all benefit from that increase in wealth. Okay? So it's important to point that out again because we want to work together and try to make, again, a better world. And I see there's no better way to get a better world than with agricultural production. And by the way, I come from a farming background. My parents were soybean and wheat producers. They also tried some cotton, some sunflower. So I grew up like that. And there are no better stewards of the land than agricultural producers. They take pride in what they produce, how they produce it, and how they take care of their land. Okay? So let's look at the future. Now, world population is going to increase. You've probably seen this graph several times, right? World population is going to increase. It says to 10 billion by 2050. I think we're going to get there a lot sooner, a lot quicker. Okay? So what does that mean? There's going to be more mouths to feed, right? The same thing that we saw in the first graph there, that population increased by 8 and wealth increased by 123. How can we continue that growth? How can we get even better at that? Because we had to feed a lot more mouth, and we will going to have to feed more mouth. Here's the other thing that is very important, and probably more important than the population being increasing, is that the amount of money in the world is going to increase as well. Okay? And not only in the US or developed countries, but also in developing countries. The best example is China. Why is it that we talk about China so much in terms of agricultural demand? They've always had a lot of people, okay? But the difference now is that those people have money, and they can demand things. And they're changing their diet from a grain-based diet, well, first from starving to grain-based diet, now to protein-based diet. China is the #1 importer of beef in the world. Who's going to supply that? Who's going to supply the wheat that they need for their bread? Okay? So we have growing population with a growing amount of money, so they can purchase with a greater purchasing power. That's your customers right there. How are we going to supply that to them? Then we have agricultural land. It's fixed. We cannot make up land, right? Actually, it's reducing. In this country, we're maxed out, and actually the amount of agricultural acres keeps reducing. And you can see it in the valley. When I left here, there were a lot more farmland along Highway 83, or now it's, I think, Highway 2. Now there's a lot more malls and houses and things like that. So it's less agricultural land. So how are we going to be able to keep feeding people with less land? We have to increase the productivity. We have done it in the past, and I'm going to show you how. Or I'll show you data. But there's just a few countries that you can increase farmland. And we did an analysis on Brazil, and Brazil is one of them that they can increase they can be better manager, or they manage better their rangeland and increase more on the cropland. But that's just it is an exception than the rule. So we have less farmland. We're going to have more people with purchasing power and less farmland. How are we going to feed them? That's a really important issue that we're going to face in the future. And then the other thing is that when you look at farmers in the U.S., the average farmer age is pushing 70, right? So who's going to produce food? All right, how have we done it in the past? Since 1950, we've almost quadrupled the productivity with fewer input. Those numbers from the Texas Farm Bureau, and it said today's farmer produced 262% more food with 2% fewer input. And we can see that also in the level of, that graph shows the input and level of output. We're using less input right now, and our output is going up. So we have to be more and more productive. Why? Because we have less and less land, and also because we have more people to feed with more purchasing power. Okay? So that is very important to point out, and is something that we need to keep an eye on. How can we be more productive? And that's the entrepreneur in you, to try to figure out how to make that happen. Now, here in the U.S., we're the largest agricultural exporter in the world. We're so good that we supplied our domestic demand and we have plenty to export. This table shows U.S. agricultural exports as share of production. When you look at cotton, for example, 97% of the cotton that we produce, and we produce quite a bit of cotton here in the valley, is exported. Mainly to Mexico, some to Vietnam, okay, some to China as well. When you look at sorghum and wheat, 64%, 42%, rice 40%. About 20% of what it is produced here in this country in terms of volume is exported. That's why the discussion that we have about tariff is so important for agricultural producers. Something that affects them directly. About 1/3 of U.S. farm income comes from our exports. So it's vital to keep those markets abroad open. Even though corn is only 15%, we're the second largest exporter of corn, first and second, depending on how Brazil does. So that's how important we are in corn production. On the flip side, we also depend on imports to maintain our lifestyle. About 100% of the limes that we consume here is imported. About 99.9% of the bananas are imported. Look at coffee, 99.8%. I see a lot of coffee cups there, right? Coffee is very, very important. I personally don't drink coffee, so doesn't affect me directly, but my wife loves coffee, so life's a lot easier when she has her cup of coffee in the morning. But again, our lifestyle, that's the way we don't have to wait for things to be in season. We have strawberries year-round, we have berries, we have anything that we can think of. Avocados, 90% of the avocados that we consume in this country is imported. So when you have trade, we can export, you open markets, but you open your market as well. And we have the largest market in the world. 40% of what it is consumed in the world happen in this country. One country, 330 million people with a lot of purchasing power. Everybody wants to send stuff to this country, okay? Because we consume quite a bit. Now, what are the results of having trade freedom? Trade freedom means that we have less and less barriers of trade. We have low import tariff. We have low or very few non-import trade distortions. So when you look at this data, you show that, and this one is from the Heritage Foundation, and divided countries into 3 different groups. One that is very free trade, the other one's middle, and the other ones that have a lot more issues with trade. Basically, they don't have that much trade freedom. When you look at these variables, you look at the countries that have more trade freedom are more than 9 times richer than the ones that they have trade restrictions. Okay? We have the countries that have more trade freedom have more food security. The countries that have more trade freedom have more political stability and less violence and terrorism. Again, those are very important measures. It is important, maybe not so much in this country, but in other countries. I've seen it. I travel all around the world. And I'm from a country that we have issues with food security, political stability, terrorism. Okay? And then the last one that is a good one, because I hate when I hear people say that farmers, they don't care about their land. It hits home very quickly. The countries that have more trade freedom have healthier environments and less polluted ecosystem. And it makes sense because you produce what you're efficient at producing, and you import what you're not efficient or you cannot produce it year-round. So you're very, very efficient at it. Now, what are the results of that? Sorry that these numbers are a little small, but what this shows is that here in the U.S. we have the most affordable food in the world. Here we have countries from 1 through 103, Here in this country, we spend 6.79% of our disposable income on food at home. And the way that we measure is just food at home, because that way we can compare apples to apples with other countries. Because here about half of our food goes to away from home. But when you add that, it's about 13%. But just food at home is about 6.79, and that's the most affordable, the cheapest in the world. And why is that? Because we have a good production system. We're a good agriculture producing nation. And we also have one of the countries that have the lowest tariffs. Because if we cannot produce it, like bananas and coffee, or we cannot produce it year round, like strawberries and tomatoes and other fresh produce, we import it. Okay? So, but what does that mean about 6.79 compared to, let's say, Canada, about 9.66, Mexico, about 26% of their disposable income. But look at this one here at the bottom. Nigeria, almost 60% of their income on average is spent on food. So for the breadwinner of the household, they're so worried about feeding their family that they cannot think about innovation, investment, just going and try to be more productive. They just worry about bringing food to the table. We do it with 6.79. We have a lot of disposable income left for new iPhones, more cars, traveling and things like that help the economy. Remember that about 70% of the GDP of the production of this country is consumption, or the measure of wealth of this country is consumption. And that things work, and you demand more things. But it's important to point out that first you have to produce in order to be able to demand. That's how this country was built. It was built in production, not in demanding things. Okay? Now the good thing about the programs that you're going to see outside on those booths is that you will be able to use some of the production that other people have done and have paid their taxes to try to support those programs. So take advantage of that so you can use that as a capital to start creating wealth with that $1 million idea of how you're going to be able to supply the needs of your consumers. This one was very interesting because he's a guy, he said, how do you make a $1,500 chicken sandwich? There's this guy that got into a project and said, I want to produce a chicken sandwich. Well, I grow all the ingredients. So he had to grow the vegetables, he had to milk cows, he had to make cheese, he had to grow the chicken feed. He even had to take an airplane to closer to the ocean so he can produce salt. He didn't charge that plane ticket into this $1,500 chicken sandwich. Okay, so the point here is that we need to take advantage of specialization. There are people that do good things more efficient than we do. Take advantage of that. That's what, again, I'm pro-trade, because trade is important. If we can produce something 3 or 4 times more expensive than our neighbor, why would we do it? Let them do it, and we can produce something differently. And we have worked with Mexico. There's many examples of that. We send a lot of grains to Mexico, a lot of corn, a lot of soybeans, a lot of rice. Okay? Mexico consumes a lot of that. Okay? And Mexico is better at producing fresh produce. That's what a lot of the fresh produce comes from Mexico as well. But we still have windows of production. We just have to be able to gain the consumer and try to add value to that product and not compete and not be the cheapest producer, but be more added value. When I used to work on small acreage when I was here in the valley, I used to tell them, why is it that when you go to Disney World, you pay $40 for a t-shirt that says Disney World, but you can get it in an HEB for $10? Because it is not the t-shirt. It's the same t-shirt, but it's the experience, right? And that's why when we look at small production, we're not trying to compete with this big corporation. We're trying to give the experience to consumers. The good thing about these consumers is that on average, they spend about 6.79% of their income on food, so they could spend more if you give them value, if you give them a reason for them to spend more, that it is produced locally, that it is produced organically, that X, Y, and Z. But that depends on you as the producer to try to figure out how to create value for your consumers. Now, let's move into South Texas production. What are the main products that we produce here? The Valley, the Rio Grande Valley, 4 counties, we are the 4th largest producing region in Texas, agricultural producing region in Texas. And Texas is the 3rd and the 4th, depending on the year, in terms of agricultural production in the U.S., California being number 1. So Texas is still very important in agricultural production. When we look at the breakdown of what is it that it is produced, 74% is crops, 13% livestock, and 13% ag-related. And ag-related a lot have to do with ecotourism and things like that. That's another one that is growing as well. There's a lot of people that come from up north just to bird watching is one of them, and do some other things. You know, that is part of agriculture as well. Okay, and people pay for those things. Now, when you look at the top crops, about 29% of the income from the main crops here in the valley comes from cotton, 9% citrus, 24% vegetables. You got grain sorghum at 17%, 7% corn, and then sugarcane, although this year the sugar mill closed due to lack of water, so we don't have that anymore. So that area probably is going to be converted into something else. But when you look at vegetables, it's a big part of what we produce here. And one of the reasons, of course, besides having the land, is that because of our climate. We basically produce when others are in the winter time. So we have that window of production that is a big plus in able to compete with other regions and other countries as well. So again, this area is set, or it has the what it takes to be able to compete in those areas. Now, again, this one was about 10 years ago that I was working with Farmers Market, and again, I see Diana Padilla there. She was it's a great partner. We work together in a lot. I learned a lot from them. And now that she has Project Hope, and I know she's on the program later, and she has a booth. And we were just talking about trying to update this one, because this one was, this study that I'm going to show was about 10 years ago, and I think a lot of things have changed, so I've adjusted some of the numbers for inflation, but hopefully soon we're going to have an updated version of it. So we work with some of the folks here in the valley, in different farmers market. So it was a lot of fun. It was very interesting times. And we did a feasibility study. That it was used a lot because we were able to answer more or less on what expected level of return would you get from a small acreage. And we basically developed a representative farm, or a virtual farm that represents small acreage here in the valley. And basically what that one does is a representative of this small acreage here in South Texas. 3 producers help us to get the numbers. The Rep Farm consists of 3 acres of vegetable production. We got some data from a panel and field trials and extension personnel. This representative farm, or this virtual farm that we created, will sell to 5 restaurants, and we'll have about 100 members under the CSA, Consumer Supported Agriculture. The CSA will run about 24 weeks from December to May, and at that time they will charge a $50 membership fee plus a $15 per each Saturday when they pick up the goods. And if you pay for the full season, the membership was waived off. The good thing about the CSA again is that it gives the producers capital so they can start producing their crop. Okay, just remember, talk to some of the booths out there that some of them are, they can provide that capital. I'm part of one of them, the Rio Grande Colonias, what's the name? It's Food Business Center, Regional Food Business Center. So it's a mouthful, but a Regional Food Business Center, the Colonias, and they have grants for producers also. They have technical assistance, but that's not the only one too. There's a lot of them. But I encourage you, if you're interested in this area, to go talk to those people. They're very, very helpful, and they know how to figure things out. So anyways, so that was a feasibility study. When we looked at the expected income at that time, sending from the CSA, farmers market, and restaurant receipt, etc., was about $64,000. Adjusted for inflation, that will be about $81,000. Now your cost, more or less a list of cost, representative again, and that's what we're going to be updating, because there's some other things that we just discussed with Diana about how to do it. But the cost also went up, of course, to about $35,000. So what does that mean? That means that on average, you could expect anywhere between $45,000 to $55,000 return, net return, from that. Now, Diana was telling me there's some other groups that they're getting about $40,000 return on a third of an acre, a fourth, 3/4 of an acre, less than an acre, 3/4 of an acre, about $40,000. There's always, trying to figure out how to be more efficient, how to create value for your consumer. Okay, and that is very important to do. Now, what does this matter? Okay, what are the main things the main points that I wanted to leave you guys on, or with? Now we know the world is better when trade occurs. Show you with data how things have just shoot up, because again, we're producing what we're really good at producing, and we're importing what we cannot. So, needless to say, I'm against tariffs. The lower the tariffs, the better. Okay? So, agriculture production is key to a better world. We have to eat. We don't have to get a car. We can rent an apartment. We don't have to go on trips, but we have to eat. There's no other way around it. Now, what we eat is a different thing. First, we have to eat so we don't die, right? Once you get that covered, then you want to eat good things, healthy things, or things that taste good, right? So we need agricultural production. So either we produce it or we're going to import it. Regardless, we as a consumer, we benefit from it. Again, the reason that we spend so little on food is because we're very good at producing what we produce well, and we have low import tariffs, or we have more trade freedom, so we can import whatever we cannot produce year-round. Now, there's a lot of opportunities for U.S. producers that are very promising. Again, how can you create value? That is very, very important. Okay? People are willing to pay more for something that they believe that has more value. Okay? Remember, take them to Disney World. Think about that. Same t-shirt, one is 4 times more expensive than the other. Same t-shirt. How can you add value? What's the story you're going to have behind that? There are many programs that support existing and new producers. Like I said again, spend the time out there. There's several programs. I saw Project Hope. I saw the Rio Grande Colonias. I saw UTRGV. There's NRCS, USDA. Spend the time, ask questions, and just get to know those people. I think they're really, really, really good resources, and they care of what they do. That's another thing that is very important. When you care of what you do, then you're a great resource. It's not just your job. It's part of who you are. With that, I want to thank you. I don't know if we have time for questions, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have. And before that, that's my contact information. You want a copy of the presentation, if you want to ask me questions, if you don't want to ask it right now, you just send me an email. There's my email and there's my phone number. Give me a call, send me an email. I travel quite a bit, so the best shot is to send me an email, but if I'm in the office, I want to pick up the phone. Thanks.
One question. I want to show the opportunity.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is, do you know the percentage of fruits and vegetables that is imported into the United States from Mexico and Canada?
I know that about 50% of the fruits that we import and about 72% of the vegetables that we import come from Mexico. I don't know from Canada.
So, seeing that import that amount, that means that if we produce that, that's an opportunity for our local community as an option for increasing business.
Of course. Yes. Remember, you have the market. And when you look at the trend, and we have a report, if you go to our website, but that are at the bottom, cdas.tmu.edu, last year we did a report on the fresh fruit and vegetable outlook. And we look at those trends, Diana. So if you want to get numbers and where they come from, those products, they're in that report. You can download it, you can print it. And if I can remember correctly, we have gone from about, in the last 10, 15 years, for about 10% of the vegetables consumes on this country were imported to about 30, and in terms of fruit, we've gone to about 40 to about 60%. So the trend is just we're depending more and more on imports. Now, that is a good thing as a consumer because we don't have to wait for products, right? But if we can produce it here, we have the market, right? So again, when you look at your customers, they're going to be there. Is that how can you produce something that compete, and not necessarily as a the cheap product or cheap or the competing with those big multinationals, but what is it you can create more value? What is your story? And again, take it to Disney World. Yes, sir. About 72% of the vegetables come from Mexico, and about 50% comes from of the fruits come from Mexico. The way that tariffs work is that they're a cost, a tax. So yes. Now the question is that how much is the producer or the consumer is going to pay, and how much the producer from other countries and the brokers are going to take the hit. So that's most of the time the consumer takes a lot of the hit, but also it could be taken in the middle, the middleman and also the producer in the country. But that's what a tariffs are. Tariffs basically is a tax. No. It could. Yeah, he was asking about the tariffs that we have on the other countries, and how does that work? And I mentioned that a tariff is a tax on a product, so basically increase the price of the product. The question is that how much is passed to the consumer and how much is paid by the producer and the broker, okay? So not necessarily the 25% is going to be paid by the consumer, but it could. That will be the upper bound. So if you ask me how much is going to go up, it's going to go up between 0 and 25, and somewhere in between. And it have to do with elasticities and substitutes and complement and things like that. Get a little bit more complicated. But nobody wants a tax. Okay? We have about one of the lowest import tariffs in the world, about 4% across the board. And we benefit from it because we get things that are cheaper, right? Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Hers and then. Okay, ma'am.
Some words of encouragement. So in this idea of growing food to subsidize some of those numbers that we're talking about, what would you encourage young farmers to move forward with growing their food, or some words of encouragement for as an economist?
You know, as an economist, we're not very positive people, right? So I don't know if we're going to give an encourage. We're very dry, you know. It's like profit and margin and you know. It's like I would say just know your market. You know, I think again, you know, when you look at the opportunity to try to extract to have consumer pay more for something that they value more, they're willing to do it. That's what you got organic production. You have to pay more. You have to pay more for produce locally, or you know, people know that. And when I was participating in those farmers market, people were willing to pay. They didn't care about the price, but they had to get there. And how can you get more? Not only the farmers market, but somewhere else, you know, local restaurants and things like that. But you have to show it's the economic model. You know, what is your value proposition? What value are you bringing? It's not that you just pay me more because I'm nice. It's because this product is different because X, Y, and Z. You have to be able to sell it. The complicated things, and now I know Diana knows this, is that when you're a small producer, you're not only a producer, but you're a marketer, you're a food safety, you're a finance, you're everything. And it's not easy to do that. But at the same time, you know, it's been done, and there are people that are successful doing it. It's not for everybody, but your demand is going to be there. It has to be there. We have to eat. Yes, ma'am. Sir? Everybody heard that question? Is that what happened? Yes, and basically what happened when you have a tariff, when you have a tariff that increases the value of products that are important, would local production take advantage of it? And the answer is yes, because you're competing with a product that is potentially 25% more expensive. So yes, it's when you do an analysis, it's not a static; it's a dynamic thing. You know, so a lot of things are going to move at the same time. One issue that you have to take into consideration, though, is your inputs. Where are your inputs coming from? A lot of your fertilizer is imported, so that means that your cost of production is going to go up as well. You know, so it's more complicated, but yes, it has the potential to open opportunities for local productions to supply that demand. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The multiplier effect, what do you mean?
$1, so there's a like 10-time multiplier effect, right? So now the cost is going to increase. That's our input. So what would be the multiplier effect? Is it 5-time? Could be 10-time. Then the price is going to be $15,000 sandwich.
That I'm not sure. I don't know what the multiplier effect will be. We have done economic impact analysis, and we know that for the products that you import, the multiplier is about 2, while if you produce it locally, it's about 4 or 4.5. Okay, but not in the cost. That any fellow economist, I'm calling a friend. Anybody? Yes. So I'm sure there's a number there. I can find it for you. If you can, again, you shoot me an email. I'll try to get you an answer. I'm sure there are studies on that. I just off the top of my head, I can't remember on it any.
That's what I'm trying to find out, because the shrimp, you know, the shrimp bars are very happy right now, right? They have no cost. The only thing is gasoline, diesel, but the price going down. But now there's no competition. In our case, everything is imported: fertilizer,
Right.
you know, plastic, mulch, equipment, everything.
Right.
So we don't produce here, so that's why like it's not like a short-term turnaround solution. It takes time.
Sure.
And then on top of the tariff things going back and forth, I don't even know what to grow.
I hear you, and that's what I feel for producers is that right now they don't know what to produce because we don't know what market's going to be out there, you know. So yes, I wish I have a better answer, but yeah, these are rough times. Ma'am?
I think it's a very fascinating time right now for the valley with the sugar production that's out of business now. So what do you foresee in the future? What will replace the sugar production? Vegetables or?
I would think so, but the first question is, are we going to have enough water? Because the reason that the sugar mill, or one of the big reasons why the sugar mill closed is because it didn't have enough water. Not that sugar cane consumes more than any other crop, but because sugar cane is a year-round crop.
Right.
So in a year, you're gonna consume 2-3 times more just because you have to water year-round.
Right.
So if you have enough water, I would say vegetable because it's a higher value product. You're replacing a higher value crop like sugarcane with a higher value crop like vegetable. If again you have the demand and you can make it work for you. Okay. The other one, if you have a lot more extension, then you go with your regular row crops with cotton, sorghum, and corn. But the return per acre is a lot lower. It's less risky, but it's a lot lower than, in this case, sugarcane or vegetables.
Another question is, do you have any kind of comments about what would happen if the U.S. government gave support for people who are growing vegetables the way they do for the row crops?
There are some programs. Right now, I believe that the Valley got about $280 million to help producers that excuse me, that lost the production because of water issues with Mexico. Just check on the TDA, Texas Department of Agriculture, or also USDA. It's about $280 million for producers that they lost partially or fully their crop because of lack of water. You can apply it, and that's going to that basically go. You can get money from that program. Yes. Sure. Any other question? I think we're done.
One more question.
Any other question? Yes, sir.
USDA approved like a $10 billion to help out the farmers, but those are big farmers. They grow like at 100,000, right? We're growing only like maybe 50 acres, so there's no program for that because I look at the crops. All of them are those major crops that they export to different countries. But we're talking about local farmers are dying, and even though we voted for him.
But I think the 10 billion is part of the farm bill, isn't it? This 280 billion, it was an ad hoc program that it just came out. You take a look at it, and it applies for fruits and vegetable producers too. I don't know the size. That's only Valley, yes. It's only the Valley. It's $280 million. So that's only Valley. That's correct. So you might apply for. I mean, you might qualify for. Do you know? You know in the Valley? Or you're farther up? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Where? Houston. Okay. Yes. But I think that $10 billion might be part of the farm bill. Do you think? That's what I would think.
Added as well.
It-
It was added as well.
It was.
To help us. It was added as well to help because of the tariff.
Oh.
But all our small farmers are not affected in the way that they are, or they're exporting.
Right. Okay.
So that funding was for people who were exporting that are losing their business, or losing some business.
Okay.
So that's also an add-on.
Okay.
But the 280 is for the Valley, for anyone who was affected irrigation-wise, 2023 and 2024.
Okay. Thank you, Dana. Thank you. I wasn't aware of it. Well, thank you, and again, happy to be back in the Valley. Good luck.